Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today to learn a little bit about the Healthcare and Life Sciences Cloud Symposium, topic being the future of mission-critical cloud mobile ecosystems, with a deep dive into a recent implementation at Atrium Health System in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm Brian Beaver. I'm Halo Health's Director of Implementation Services, and I'm joined today by Amanda Nash. Amanda, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am Amanda Nash. I'm the Director of Information and Analytics Services here at Atrium Health.
Thanks, Amanda. As I noted, today we're going to take a deep dive into what a mission-critical cloud mobile ecosystem is and the future that it provides across all major health systems, should they choose to embark on this adventure. And we're going to take a deep dive into a recent implementation at Atrium Health, where they chose to take on this challenge of implementing a mission-critical cloud mobile ecosystem across their health system in Charlotte, North Carolina. What we're going to review are basic points around the user population. We touched over 30,000 plus professional users across this implementation, and that number continues to grow on a day-to-day basis. This spans across 12 acute care facilities, multiple rehab and behavioral health locations, and it's inclusive of neighboring ambulatory locations, all powered by the Halo platform, the ingenuity and expertise that the Atrium Health team brought to the table in this implementation, and the scalability that Amazon Web Services powering the Halo platform provides. So we'll get into details here as we go on today. Our specific agenda: again, a background. We'll give a quick overview of Atrium Healthcare. I'll ask our guest and Atrium expert, Amanda Nash here. She's graciously chosen to partner with us, being Halo Health, in providing this presentation to you, the audience, and then I'll take on the overview of the Halo platform. We'll give an overview and importance of what a mission-critical cloud mobile ecosystem is and why it can benefit you in the long run. And then we'll get into the specifics and touch on the specifics of the actual Atrium implementation, giving an overview of the objectives, the best practices that were developed throughout the implementation, and the outcomes that were experienced. And then we'll jump into specifically a topic that's near and dear to everyone's heart today, the current situations with COVID-19 and the opportunities that a mission-critical cloud mobile ecosystem, having been put in place, provided from a scalability and a quick stand-up of rapid mission-critical communication lines that were leveraged and still are leveraged during the COVID-19 situation. And then Amanda will jump into kind of the future state and what Atrium Health specifically sees moving forward, and we'll wrap up the day with closing comments. So now, Amanda, I'll throw it over to you for a quick Atrium Health background.
Thanks, Brian. Just to talk a little bit about our ecosystem, as Brian mentioned, we are a healthcare system based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We have partnerships with around 45 hospitals across our 3 states, multiple EDs, urgent cares, a lot of those that we'll touch on later that were part of this implementation. Just from a sizability perspective, we do have 65,000 teammates, over 3,000 physicians. I think as we get into this presentation and Brian starts walking you through a lot of the technology that we are leveraging heavily, really kind of have to start at ground one with Atrium. Kind of why did we do this? Why did we go after a communication platform? And that was a lot of our technology we had here today around this was paper-based scheduling, an old ASCOM and Cisco environment that functioned poorly, and then paging equipment that all of you know has a lot of black holes in delivering effective communication.
Thanks, Amanda. And I'll take the ball back here and give us an overview of Halo Health, who we are as a company and as an application. Halo Health, we are what's defined as a clinical communication and collaboration platform. What we strive to do is unifying and standardizing clinical communication and workflow on a single mobile platform. Now, when we say mobile, we obviously operate on mobile devices, both iOS and Android alike, as well as on web platforms. So we can reach any user where they are and whatever means necessary for them to interact with our application. Ultimately, our goal is to accelerate patient care and improve clinical and financial outcomes. The key features that are leveraged in the Atrium implementation and across our application as a whole really based themselves around intuitive, secure messaging, on-call scheduling, and schedule management, allowing for automated roles, and we'll get into that in a bit. A VoIP client that runs natively within our application, so we can come into the hospital and connect with the hospital's VoIP infrastructure to supply VoIP calling features within the same app that you're leveraging for messaging purposes. And then through more advanced integrations, we can leverage critical results and other alerts to be delivered to the appropriate care team members at the appropriate time. A little bit of background on the Halo Health platform. From an AWS perspective, we've been a cloud customer since 2015. With AWS, we've built our application around the tools and the opportunities that AWS provides to us, allowing us to scale our application at unprecedented rates. We are scalable for health system customers across the United States. So we have 200 plus health systems in the US, many with 30,000 plus users, again, Atrium being one of them, and we're going to learn a lot about that today, and many of which are doing upwards of 35 million annual actions per year, meaning in a year, a given health system is interacting with the mobile application over 35 million times. Again, highlighting that at-scale nature that AWS really provides. And at our core, it's important to note that Halo Health is founded by physicians, for physicians initially. Over the lifespan of our company and our product, we've expanded into much more than just physician use, but that clinical nature has never diminished. It's always been a clinically focused company and will continue to be, highlighted by not only our staff being internal to our company. We have many physicians and nurses actually employed by Halo Health, but we also leverage advisory boards outside of our employee base for our top customers who bring their brightest minds and clinicians to the table for advisory board meetings to talk about the direction of the Halo platform. So that's a little background about what we'll be learning with Halo Health specifically today, and then the Atrium project. Now I'm going to take an opportunity to dive us deep into what a mission critical cloud mobile ecosystem is and the technology that's behind it, as well as the processes and procedures that are important and imperative to standing one of these ecosystems up. First and foremost, what is the mission critical cloud mobile ecosystem? Well, you see it here, and at the top you'll see the Halo platform. That's the application, obviously, that we're here to talk about today, that was leveraged by Atrium and to produce outcomes along the road of implementation. But there are many pieces that allow the Halo platform to function as it can and as it should. And a couple things that we'll touch on here today are mobile devices. Again, the platform itself is device agnostic. That's the term we use to say that it can run on any device you're holding. But the mobile device selection process is equally as important as the application selection process that's going to run on it. We'll talk about on-premise integrations. We'll talk about what we can hook up to the Halo platform that allows us to leverage the AWS cloud as best as humanly possible to hook up the right technologies to the right application for communication needs in the clinical space. We'll talk about the health IT infrastructure that's necessary to run this mission critical cloud mobile ecosystem. We'll talk about the Wi-Fi and the internet service provider considerations that need to be had there. We'll talk about services that are wrapped up in this. How do you select a phone? That's one thing, but how do you kit that phone? How do you deploy that phone across multiple hospitals, multiple units, multiple nursing staff, multiple physician users? How does that all work, and what needs to be considered when you do so? We'll talk about mobile device management, aka MDM software. How do you, not only do you need to select the device, like I said, not only do you need to deploy said device, but then you need to manage it. And devices are easy to manage when you can touch every single one of them. But when you're talking about deploying 8,000 plus devices across a clinical landscape, you easily become out of physical touch with those devices rather quickly. So what considerations need to be had around mobile device management? And then finally, mobile applications that are going to live on this device. Today, we're going to focus on the Halo platform first and foremost at Atrium Health, but Atrium Health themselves, and Amanda will tell you, has come into a best practice of their own around a governance process as to what other mobile applications make their way on this device and what considerations have to be had when deciding those decisions. Okay, so diving into this idea of a mission critical cloud mobile ecosystem, why is it important? I think we've touched on high level what's involved in this ecosystem, but why are we talking about it in depth today? Well, when it comes to the Halo platform and deploying this mission critical cloud mobile ecosystem across a healthcare system, we're talking about first and foremost faster access to critical patient information. The EHRs exist today, but they exist for documentation purposes. What we are discussing is real-time communication needs that scale across your hospital and outside of the four walls into the ambulatory practices and affiliated physicians. We're talking about getting information to the right person at the right time, allowing faster collaboration between clinicians, and ultimately allowing care teams to mobilize faster, right? If a patient needs immediate attention, the best way to facilitate that is to get the right information to the right person at the right time. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today and the technology that helps that. When we speak about how the Halo platform is architected with AWS, we talk about how it enables scale. And what I mean by that is that we can quickly deploy our platform within the acute setting, within the facility itself, but we can immediately expand beyond those four walls by way of the fact that our application is built and powered by AWS and scalable due to cloud architecture. What that drives is high adoption across a health system because health systems, it's intuitive. Health systems have access to it. Their users don't have high mountains to climb to start interacting with the application, and it's immediately inserted into high value workflows. What we do and the value in this from standing up this mobile ecosystem is what Amanda touched on and what she'll get into specific to Atrium is it replaces older technology almost immediately, right? Health systems today are notorious for still using pagers and fax machines. Those are two technologies that in any other place in the world you'd call outdated, but in the health system, they're right at home. And let's be honest, it's the year 2020. So what we're doing is we're coming in, we're giving immediate value adds to replacing older technologies that no longer A, have to exist, but B, have to be supported. There's nothing more challenging than using a piece of outdated technology than actually supporting that technology. That, in a lot of cases, is even more challenging. Again, something Amanda touched on is we're coming in and replacing paper and manual processes. So paper and fax schedules, calling to find on-call physicians and consults, just workflows that are non-efficient and just aren't in the current age, right? It's 2020. The second you print a piece of paper in this technology and computer age, the second that it's out of date, right? So if we can consolidate those on-call schedules into one point of reference and one point of management, we can alleviate those inefficiencies downstream in finding the right person at the right time. And then ultimately, like I touched on, less maintenance. There's no on-premise equipment for installation of this platform, and which leads to less overhead for a health system's IT department from a support and maintenance perspective. So that's what it is. What are we going to talk about that's needed to establish and manage this mobile ecosystem? Well, the four main points we're going to jump on are a strategy. So we're going to need high-level bullet points that are going to guide us strategically into how we're going to architect this, all the players that need to be at the table, and then how we're going to put this whole thing together. Secondly, security. Obviously, in today's age, security is at the top of everyone's mind, but as we progress forward, and now in the year 2020, cloud is becoming a little bit more familiar. But in the healthcare space, there's still a lot of questions about the security that can be had from it. And is it okay to break out of the four walls of my hospital or my data center and allow applications to function outside of that? The answer is yes. And that's a lot of the reason why we're going to touch on with our partnership with AWS to bring this to our users and our health systems. Thirdly, management of software and devices. I touched on a little bit and will continue to, but MDM software, mobile device management, as well as how you manage the software that interacts with these applications is utterly important. And then finally, integrations. We'll touch on what it means to hook up outside systems and softwares and feed data into the Halo platform, all with the focus on real-time communication. Diving into the Halo platform itself and what it means to exist in this mobile ecosystem, I wanted to take a moment to illustrate kind of our architecture and the backing of AWS that we have today. So here on the left-hand side of this visual, you'll see all the inputs, right? We have a mobile application that our users interact with on the client side. We have a web application that's the same story. We have customer software. Our customers in our health systems come to us and say, we want to integrate XYZ. XYZ could be a nurse call system. It could be the electronic health record. It could be other paging systems, so on and so forth. The bottom line is our customers view the Halo platform as an aggregate for all of this important data that needs to be disseminated to the right person at the right time. So how do we facilitate those integrations, and how do we leverage Amazon Web Services to the best of our ability? And then finally, AD Agent. That is our means of provisioning users, onboarding and offboarding users in an efficient and secure fashion, so that users aren't handed the Halo platform and now have to remember some other username or password. We can tie into a health system's Active Directory system to allow for seamless onboarding with user credentials and the security around authentication. Once those pieces get into the Halo platform itself, you can see the intricacy of this architecture, all of which is powered by Amazon Web Services, allowing for high scalability, high redundancy, and then just the scalability across multiple data centers, physical data centers that transpose themselves into cloud-based architecture that allows for the quick and functional scalability and usability of this application. You can see that all architected here in this diagram. Again, and then outwardly, we interact with, from a messaging standpoint, Apple and Google push services to alert our users of real-time communication out in the field. All wrapped up with security to our customer around proper VPN channels into our mainframe architecture here. And jumping into those topics that I touched on around the mobile ecosystem, the first one we'll discuss is mobile devices and how you manage them. Device considerations first and foremost. Obviously, the Halo platform, as I mentioned, can function across any number of devices, be it iOS, Android, or web platforms. But when we talk about constructing a mobile ecosystem across the health system, we're talking about selecting devices that will be shared amongst clinicians. So the hospital will actually purchase devices and deploy those devices to users who will use them in a shared model. We're talking about devices that individual users will bring on themselves, use in a bring your own device capacity, BYOD for short. And then we're talking about various other managed technologies that are either brought on by the user, used as a web client, or various other mobile devices that are owned by the hospital system. What we need to consider when talking about specific devices that are deployed across the health system is, what is the driving force of this project? You'll hear a lot from Amanda about how the driving force in their eyes was a CCCP, and the Halo platform was that specific choice for that application, right? But we often walk into other environments where the driver is a mobile EHR. The customer is actually looking for a point of care need at the bedside, with the secondary application being a communication platform. Now, those drive very different outcomes and very different focal points, but at the end of the day, we have to consider this mission critical mobile ecosystem and what it drives when it comes to device selection. So when we look at choosing specific devices deployed across the acute setting, we're talking about rugged, purpose-built devices versus consumer-grade devices. Amanda will touch on this as well, but she has seen firsthand in the Atrium deployment of what it looks like to manage both. In some cases, there are rugged, purpose-built devices deployed that are made specifically for the healthcare environment. And then in other cases, some Atrium teammates are using consumer-grade devices that are deployed for their use. Mobile device management. What does it mean to leverage software to control these devices that are out in the field? You often run into issues where the device needs to be replaced. There's various support metrics that you need to have with the device that you can't physically get your hands on it. It's important to assess the mobile device management software that's going to be deployed with this project simply from a support overhead. And that goes beyond just break-fix issues. It goes into the ever-changing landscape of what these operating systems on these devices need from a maintenance and support perspective. So when we talk about purpose-built devices, we're largely talking about devices that are running the Android operating systems. Those operating systems obviously take updates, security patches, so on and so forth. It's important from a mobile device management perspective that the health system has the opportunity to touch these devices remotely as possible, and push these updates down so that security is always at the top of mind, and the devices are functioning consistently. And then just as I just touched on device imaging and security, that really speaks to the need to highlight these security patches and any operating system updates that need pushed out so that the device image is always up to date and consistent across your entire user population. The goal being that a nurse in facility A can walk into their unit, pick up a device, and he or she is interacting with the device that looks the same as when he or she was in facility B yesterday and on the unit and interacting with the device there. Again, it translates even further away from the operating system down to the application level. Managing one or two applications on a device is challenging enough. When you start adding 3, 4, or more applications to a mobile device that is being used in the clinical space, it immediately becomes challenging to ensure that each application is up to date, as those release patterns are independent of each other, right? Application A and the Halo platform could be on entirely different release cycles, releasing new app versions on a consistent basis, but not at the same time. It's important to leverage a software to allow you to update those apps over the air. Integrating on-premise technology with the cloud. So one of the key aspects here in establishing a mission-critical mobile ecosystem is allowing output of data from other systems, other software, other applications to feed into the Halo platform in this case, to aggregate data in one area and facilitate real-time communication. The bottom line is in healthcare, alert fatigue is very real. Integrating on-premise alerting systems with cloud communication technology is utterly important, and you have to do it the right way. What I like to say is because you can integrate it doesn't mean you should. In the clinical space, less is a lot more, meaning we don't want to over inundate clinical users with more information than they need. That is ultimately what the EHR is for, right? The EHR separates itself as a documentation space, whereas the Halo platform plays in that real-time communication space. What we need is the real actionable information delivered to a user at the right time. And what this looks like is integrating on-premise PBX, which is the voice over IP phone calling system that is housed within the health system itself. We can integrate that into the Halo platform to bring voice call and quality metrics up to the cloud and allow call traffic to remain local to ensure proper voice quality. These are all considerations that have to be taken into account for the mission critical mobile ecosystem to allow proper communication. But in large part, the point that I want to highlight here is that we are taking, by connecting these technologies with the Halo platform, we are taking what is normally on-premise information and bringing it to the cloud for a comprehensive view of what's really happening in our voice calling space across our health systems. And then unification of point solutions with a CCCP, in this case, the Halo platform. It is not uncommon for health systems to have softwares that alert their clinical end users that are different from facility to facility, or at a very minimum, they're implemented differently across different facilities. We call those siloed technologies. What exists over here looks and feels differently than what exists in the other facilities. What the Halo platform allows for is all of those systems, by their various means, integrated into the Halo platform, allowing one point for aggregation. Once we have that, we've now unified data that is output from all these siloed softwares and applications into a single point of entry that we can then have oversight from an analytic perspective into what's happening at a holistic and down to the nitty-gritty details of how our clinicians are being communicated with. So all of that is great, but from a technical infrastructure consideration standpoint, what do we have to account for? The biggest being network infrastructure. There's going to be a large number of mobile devices that are deployed and introduced into your environment. That environment largely is going to look different post-deployment than it did pre-deployment. This is an unprecedented deployment model that a lot of health systems have not tackled yet. And you'll hear the details from Amanda here shortly, but heavy considerations have to be taken to this unique situation around network configurations and the bandwidth that's going to be required, as well as the physical architecture around AP placement, quality of service settings, utilization, et cetera. We must, coming into these implementations, we must upfront consider network site maps as well as heat maps to understand our current architecture and where there may be gaps that need to be mitigated prior to deployment. And then we need to account for any necessary network or Wi-Fi upgrades ahead of time. And then just to touch on that final point again, this deployment is unique. It's going to be a new project that a lot of health systems have not embarked on this journey yet. And this is a must-do task item to ensure the success of this mission-critical mobile ecosystem that we are standing up. Onboarding of other mobile applications. And this is kind of the point that's going to wrap up this whole concept of a mission-critical mobile ecosystem. This is how we determine what other applications are necessary to fit into this ecosystem. We've discussed the work effort involved to stand this mission-critical mobile ecosystem up, to ensure that it's operational, to ensure that it's reliable, to ensure that it's scalable. Now we're going to talk about what it takes to evaluate other applications that can or cannot or should not fit into this ecosystem. Considerations such as, are other apps in the environment single sign-on compatible and ready? As we talk about deploying the Halo platform specifically across the health system, that's a single application. It requires that a user enter a username and password one time to get into the application for their shift. But as we talk about putting multiple applications on that device, now we're talking about multiple username, multiple password entries just for a clinician to start a shift. This is a real user experience consideration that has to be had during the lifespan of this project. Mobile application selection and approval processes must be stood up. And Amanda will talk a bit about this, but governance committees are highly important, and the best practices around these can't go unnoticed. Mobile application governance groups can help make decisions as to where the mobile application space is going to go in the future. Just for example, we know by experience that having deployed the Halo platform into mission critical mobile ecosystems, that's just the beginning, right? Users and teammates within the health system get used to using these mobile devices, And then they have all kinds of ideas, some good, some not so good, but they need to be met with a process and a procedure for evaluation so that you understand what you're deploying into your environment, how you're going to manage those applications, and ultimately the user or the clinician user experience that it's going to craft. So with that overview of what this mission critical mobile ecosystem is and what it looks like, and the high level talking points about what it takes to deploy, I'll turn it over to Amanda here to speak specifics around the Atrium Health deployment.
Thanks, Brian. It certainly is a consideration, all the different challenges and technology points that Brian just talked through, we certainly faced at Atrium Health with our implementation. So a lot of considerations. If you talk about really kind of the driving force, and Brian alluded to this earlier around, why we decided to implement a communication platform. Really for us, it was streamlining communications across our hospitals, but also a lot of our different points of failure that we had. So we talked about paper scheduling, and if you look at a 900-bed hospital, having pieces of paper all over the units and everywhere, trying to figure out who to get on-call information to was extremely challenging for us. So that was one of our objectives. It was also to consolidate hardware. So Brian spoke to choosing the right device and really focusing on making your clinicians mobile. We had thousands of old ASCOMs and, older technology and phones that really wasn't usable. And it had all kinds of points of failure in communications. That was a big objective for us. We also wanted all 30,000 of our users kind of on the same platform. So not only clinician to clinician being able to communicate, but nurses to techs, kind of all the way down the chain, being able to really create this one platform that we could leverage. We've talked a little bit about our challenges. I'll get into that a little bit more, but I think with the implementation itself, one of the biggest ones we faced was around change management. It's interesting to watch nurses go from, I use this piece of paper to contact this physician and I page this particular provider to get a hold of this one, to all of a sudden carrying one device and really while they're on the go, being able to do all the same actions quicker, faster, knowing the information got to the other end, all of that kind of within one platform. And then as Brian also spoke to, from an infrastructure standpoint, so just leveraging a lot of the mobile device strategies that we were able to with Halo. So our current Halo platform deployed at Atrium Health is 8,000 phones. So across 12 hospitals, multiple rehab, behavioral health, a lot of our freestanding EDs, we really took an approach of neighborhoods as we rolled this out. So wanted to consolidate the platform in areas where hospitals communicated the most efficiently, since we couldn't take all 12 live at the same time. 31,000 users, I think Brian spoke to this earlier. It's really growing every day. It's been phenomenal to see the adoption from our first hospital that went live just over 2 years ago until now. Every day we get new requests, new use cases. We'll talk a little bit about our COVID use cases later, but I think when we first went down this path, we kind of thought it was specific to nurses and to physicians. And as we continue to roll out, we found use cases across all of our clinical areas, even some within and outside the hospital, such as EVS or Medic or different partners of ours that come in and out of our units. With our phones, we did have two different strategies. So we did a bring your own device, and that was for physicians. That was actually pretty well adopted. When they're on call or when they're in the hospitals, they leverage their own device with Halo. And then we also had two others that we deployed, whether it be for our nursing or for our ancillary. The nursings, we took an approach to do a scanning device. And as Brian mentioned earlier, this was kind of multi-purpose for us. So along with a lot of our EMR strategies, we wanted to get to a point where we could do not only med scanning, but also lab scanning. So the Zebra TC51 allowed us to do this. It also speaks to his need for kind of a rugged, more medical grade device. They are a little bit of a better device for cleaning. So if you're putting them in high impact areas, that sort of thing, it worked out much better. The ancillary device was a Samsung S7. Again, not medical grade, not quite as rugged, but we leveraged these in areas such as PT, OT, radiology, a lot of our food services areas where they really didn't need a scanner. And this was a little bit of a lighter weight device they could carry around. If you talk about our teams and kind of the overall approach in Halo, we do have 1,900 teams. We started with mostly clinical teams, so specific to nursing units, specific to ancillary teams. And then as we kind of went along, we peppered in a lot of different critical teams. So we really got to the point where people were getting used to the technology. It was being leveraged in our ecosystem. So we got into kind of Code STEMI, Code Blue, a lot more critical teams that were able to not only eliminate other technology vendors that we had to communicate some of those needs, but also put it all in one platform. So one provider, one nurse, one device receiving all of their communication at the same time. Talking a little bit about mobile device management, obviously with 8,000 phones, we learned quickly that we needed a system in order to manage the phones. So we did go with AirWatch, and it controls all of our access points, the updates, a lot of things that Brian spoke to around our device management. We talked about the paper schedules across our hospitals. We have converted 900 of those within Halo. So again, rather than paging someone or going to multiple places to try to find who's on call for what shift, we're able to quickly get to that within Halo and really streamline getting to the right provider at the right time. And then another approach that we took at Atrium is we connected our affiliated physicians. So all of those groups that come and work in our hospitals are now using Halo, which really kind of made it a one concise platform for us. We didn't want a nurse. When you're contacting an Atrium provider, you do it this way, and when you're contacting an affiliated, you do it this way. We wanted one standard to really make it streamlined. And it was easy to see as we went around through this process that when that didn't happen, it did create roadblocks. A few best practices on our side. Obviously, phased approach by groupings. I spoke to this earlier, our neighborhoods, that worked well to facilitate communication as you're rolling out the platform. We really underestimated, I would say, in the beginning, the project management needed around the device setup. So when you're talking about removing 300 phones from a facility and replacing it with 300 smartphones, there's a lot that goes into it, from not only an AirWatch configuration, but also considering the supplies, considering the number setup, considering charging stations, removing the old infrastructure. So it really took a unit by unit approach as we went through the go live to really get this done. Brian talked a little bit about the network preparation. I will say that I think we took the approach on our first facility where we were under the consideration if we removed 300 ASCOMs from the facility and added 300 new smartphones, that the Wi-Fi and everything would kind of even out and it would be balanced. And to Brian's point earlier, we quickly found that that didn't happen. So AP placement was key, really getting our vendors involved to make sure that the settings that are on the phones and on the network are uniquely identified for each area. And then if you talk about a lot of our evaluation and considerations around it, we talked about multiple apps and how we want to leverage our phones outside of just Halo. So single sign-on is a consideration that we've talked about that I think Brian spoke to earlier to really eliminate multiple sign-ins. Today they just log into Halo. Tomorrow they may have to log into Halo and then med scanning, and then the day after that, lab scanning. So trying to find a concise way for them to leverage the devices. So I could probably go on and on about positive outcomes from our implementation. It's been probably one of the most received rollouts that we've had here at Atrium that I've been a part of. People have really embraced the technology. I could say the technology consolidation that we set out to get, we did get. We replaced 8,000 ASCOM and Cisco phones. Pagers, as you all know, Brian alluded to the fact it's 2020 and we're still using them, but not only were they a black hole for reaching on-call providers, but extremely expensive to keep up and not good communication. So we've seen an 85% reduction in pages since we started this rollout. So extremely happy about that. We also had an ROI around the project that I'm safe to say we are exceeding right now, which was eliminating all of this infrastructure that supported old technology as part of Halo. So that's been a good way that we're moving forward with putting in better technology, faster technology, and better supported technology. So another good outcome, and we talked to this a little earlier, 30,000 users. So you think about 30,000 users on one platform, and don't just think about it as in secure texting. Kind of put it in a holistic approach like Brian spoke to earlier. So it's being able to message a physician, being able to message a nurse, being able to get an alert from a nurse call system, being able to get a sepsis alert on my phone from my EMR, being able to contact my cardiologist on call, all while walking down the hallway. So really the ability to do things faster, the information gets to the right place, and you're doing it on the go because we've enabled you to have the technology to do so. If you talk a little bit about kind of the immediate need for Halo, it's interesting because when all of the COVID-19 activity started, the first thing we thought of was Halo. It really is a tool that we were able to embed in a lot of our different areas for critical communication that was being heavily sought after. So a couple of examples, and these are just a few. I can tell you that we're continuing to build stuff every day, but a few examples would be our clinical teams facilitating kind of that lab to clinician communication of positive test results, using it a lot with infection prevention. So creating teams around that and how we can better manage what's going on in the hospital and making sure that we're taking care of our patients. We did set up a virtual hospital, if you will, here at Atrium, where we're leveraging Halo and our Get Well loop to not only communicate information from the patient back to Atrium, but then once it gets to us, we're able to send it through Halo to basically a care team for that patient that can monitor them 24/7, have the right clinicians looking at the right data to make the best decision around these patients. So really a huge win for us, and it allowed us to do so quickly. And then a lot of new clinical teams. There's a lot of things changing within the hospital around kind of intubation, intake, high risk, all of that sort of information, transferring patients across hospitals. So creating teams where we can facilitate that in not only our main hospitals, but also a lot of our freestanding tent hospitals that we've set up just for COVID-19. So the future for Atrium Health, well, I would say we're going to continue to roll it out to users. Like Brian alluded to, we get additional requests every day. Most recently, we've done kind of our Physician Connect teams, a lot of our call centers, even our information services teams that are now taking call through Halo. So continue to follow that progression, as well as expansion of our critical teams. I think we're getting more comfortable with the technology. Our users are depending upon it now, so it makes sense to transition a lot of our high impact codes from other units, whether it be paging or overhead or whatever it is, to Halo. Want to keep in lockstep with Halo, of course, on a lot of their integrations around lab and their risk results. We've done a lot of discussion and hope to move into doing some specific lab alerts and different things that we're looking at just as a healthcare system in itself. And then also keep on their roadmap for their patient care team coordination. We've always wanted to incorporate care teams, but it's always been a debate about how you keep the information updated, where do you manage it, that sort of thing. So looking more into how we can partner with Halo on that. From our mobile ecosystem, Brian alluded to, we do have governance groups set up. We want to stay in lockstep and making sure that, the phones that are being used and the apps that are on the phones are ones that are important for our clinicians, but also easy to use and work within our ecosystem. So a couple that we've done so far, the camera capture, we've done lab scanning, we've done ease for family communication, and then also the med scanning. So.
With that, thank you, Amanda, and thank you, audience, for taking an interest in today's topic of the mission critical mobile ecosystem. We hope you enjoyed the topics that we presented today, and we hope that you take away the key points around what it takes to craft a mission critical mobile ecosystem and what it looks like to ultimately deploy this for real at a major health system at Atrium Health. So again, thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation.